podcast is not Heidi's podcast. This is a podcast by Dr. Elizabeth Frederick. Now, I was pleasantly surprised that this is actually a doctor, well, meaning that they have a doctorate in psychology. Actually, let me make sure. Yeah, she's a licensed professional counselor. So she's a PhD licensed professional counselor in the state of Arizona and is trained in various therapeutic modalities, including cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT, EMDR, children, okay, all that stuff. Now, I'm going to say the negative of this, in my opinion, is that she does coaching, like relationship coaching, which just becomes, okay, unregulated therapy a lot of times from what I understand and from my own experience with a life coach that was a therapist that decided to go the coaching route and then just did whatever they wanted without having any oversight from any government agency. So keep that in mind. She does have qualifications. I'm very happy about that. I'm glad Heidi was not talking to, a sensuality coach or someone who just self-diagnosed their own title or self-named their credentials. So points, but also she is a coach as well. So got to just keep that at the top of your head. That some of the conversation might, gear away from like professional advice. So she seems to like interview like celebrity B-level, D-level celebrities and to get their insight on relationships, I guess. Anyways, that's her thing. But this podcast episode, at least on YouTube, it's only been viewed 292 times. There you go. So you're getting like the exclusive here, okay? This has not been listened to by very many people across the globe. We're going to be within the first 300 of people to listen to this, at least on YouTube. But it says, okay, episode 5, Staying Friends with Your Ex with Heidi Powell. And as you see in my background, I'm sitting on the floor of an empty bedroom because that's where Heidi conducts all of her professional interviews, on the floor of her bedroom. Gotta love it. Gotta love the consistency, at least. We snark a lot on her. And I will say, and I'll put myself in the middle here, knock it off, you guys. This is not okay. Don't fight. Stop it. Just kidding. In the first 20 minutes that I've watched this, she actually does have some self-awareness. Heidi Powell does. She has some acknowledgement of trauma in her past, which is the first time I've heard of that, where she's actually admitting and saying like, I have trauma from my childhood. So I was like, damn, okay, you're off to a good start. So this is sort of a better version of her in the sense of a less sales pitchy way of talking that I've seen. So, I like her more in this setting thus far. Now, it could go off the rails after minute 20 is when I stopped listening. So we'll see, but we'll discover it together. So anyways, without further ado, we're going to start episode 5, Staying Friends with Your Ex, and we'll go from there.
My ex and I, we do family dinner every Wednesday with our kid, and we do holidays together and, all of that.
Oh, also, I should also point out, this is just a teaser, so it's going to come up later. Yeah, isn't it hilarious and ironic as heck that this podcast is called Relatable, Relationships Unfiltered, right?
I want to be relatable.
We probably spend, well, according to the women who he takes on dates, we spend far too much time together. So
that's funny. When Chris and I were going through a divorce, and Derek and I spent a lot of time together, because the way that I see them both, they both are like brothers to me. I mean, here's the reality is I've dated not long term, but like short little bursts of men who didn't like it. Mm-hmm. And I do not like men who are like that. Like I very quickly learned that's just not for me.
Hey, welcome to Relatable, Relationships Unfiltered. Today I'm chatting with Heidi Powell, a transformation expert and self-love coach about something.
Okay, here's a tip, which is just me being like a production bitch. Get a microphone. You run a podcast and you're going to talk into your laptop that's far away on your table. Come on. It's not that expensive. I mean, it is relatively, but if you have 100-something thousand followers on Instagram and you have a practice, you own a therapy practice, get a microphone. Come on. Why do you do this to us?
Something that's not very common, but that we have in common. Staying friends with your ex. Take it from us, this can get a little tricky. Hello, Heidi.
Hi. Recording is live.
Recording is live. We are doing it. Thank you so much.
I find it disrespectful. Like, I find this to be disrespectful. And I hate to say that, but I do. Like, she's got no microphone. They both have no microphones. They both have not invested in a camera, it looks like. Okay, fine. I can get over it. The fact that they're like millionaires probably, or at least like in the top 10% of wealth in the entire country, they don't respect the audience enough to invest in equipment to make this a good experience. Come on. Like, why do I have to like strain my ears to hear you? And why are you sitting on the floor? Okay, done. I'm done complaining.
Much for coming to hang out with me. I reached out to you on Instagram. So
stop the music.
A little
too.
backstory.
It's too much.
I've followed your story in the sense of your breakups and you staying friends with your exes though.
Yeah.
Like, and that being so incredible and so not common. And I got divorced about 3 years ago and he and I are best friends to this day. And people ask me about that all the time and they look at me like I'm crazy all of the time. And so I'm like, I've got to get somebody on here with me who not only like gets it, but lives it. And so here you are.
Yeah. I mean, so first, were you guys best friends when you divorced? Because I have to say, with neither of my, because I've been married and divorced twice, we were not best friends when we divorced. And so I'm super curious to hear your story. Like, what was divorce like? And
she's like, so I'm having you on my podcast to ask you questions. Heidi's like, that's cool. I'm going to ask you a question first, though. Tell me about your relationship. Okay.
Who wanted it?
Yes, which can definitely complicate things. So I asked for it. We were married for 18 years. We separated a couple times in there. We have a 15-year-old son.
Okay.
I think that's what changes all of this. If you have kids, yeah, it does. Obviously, it's in the children's best interest to most likely remain civil at the least and remain friends at the best. I have first of all, this is not a judgment on what the content of this is. Like, oh, she shouldn't be friends with her ex, or she should. I don't care. Like, do whatever you want. This is your life story. But when it's like, oh, well, this is some sort of superior lifestyle, that's where I'm like, well, I don't know about that. I'm not sure that that's the case. And then if you have children, yes, of course. But should like you be friends with Dave Hollis, who you have no connection to other than like a failed relationship? I don't know. Is that healthy? As the therapist, I would like to know. I would imagine it's probably not, but who knows?
We're best friends.
There you go.
Yep. And so we were one and doneers. Like we were very intentional with that. And so we do have him and he 50-50 and all of that. But so I had asked for it. And so to say, were we best friends when the divorce happened? We were best friends from day one. Like that has always been our strong suit, is that we are always best friends. And when I made the decision of this is not working for me romantically anymore, no, I would say he did not want to be my friend in that moment. Obviously there was a lot of rejection attached to that, but as the time progressed, I think he recognized the value in us staying friends. So for sure we
So I gave him no choice. Basically, was that how it reads to me? Okay, keep going.
went through rough spots when the divorce first happened. But we've been pretty tight and committed to that, like throughout the process. What was it like on your end then? So you're saying doesn't sound like that's how it went.
How long ago did you say it was again? Sorry.
It's been about 3.
She does not want to answer questions, apparently. Heidi, she's like, so tell me about your divorce. And Heidi's like, wait. I'm going to ask more questions about you than I've ever asked anyone about anything before. Here we go.
3 years.
3 years. Okay. So you, since the divorce was final or since separation?
So since I moved out.
Okay. So you and I are about the same timeline for my last divorce. So Chris and I split. It was June or July or August 2019.
Okay.
So you probably somewhere around there.
Yeah.
However, he and I'll get to all the things. There's a lot to unpack in 45 minutes.
Let's unpack it.
He and I we actually did the divorce process without telling the world at all. I don't know if you know this, but we actually, so
No.
we knew we were divorcing. We were going through the divorce um, for a year, a full year. We didn't tell the public until May 2020. Now, if anyone were to ever go back on posts, we never were like, oh, I love him so. Never. We were very strategic, very careful, but also.
But also, I want to look into that. So we got July, August, or she said, yeah, July or August-ish is when they decided to get divorced, and they didn't tell anyone till the same time a year later. I wonder if they told the children. Did the children have to keep this secret too, or just them? Because they said the public. And obviously, and she's going to say in a second that they were living in separate houses. So that sort of does put a little wrench in things, because the poor kids had to, like, for a year, not tell their friends or teachers or anything, I'm sure, maybe, to, like, that what was going on at home. If it's a big secret in the world, that's sort of unfair. But I mean, I guess do what you got to do. But that would be hard for me as a kid. I would tell all of our business.
That time, let me just say, like, that time for he and I was necessary, because I remember going through a divorce the first time, and all that gets carried back to the kids and how hard it is for the kids. So we purposely did this in a way that allowed us the space to process divorce and get through the really hard, bitter part that comes with any divorce, right? Like that hard thing. We lived in the same home. He was in the casita. I was in the house. So we had enough space, but like it really allowed us to process it without getting too many opinions, which can make the divorce process pretty yucky and hard to overcome.
For sure.
Whereas Derek and I, my first husband, so I have 2 kids with Derek, Maddox and Marley. They're 17 and 16. He and I were married.
That was like a 1 microsecond pause too long for me. 16 and 17. I'm being nitpicky, but if that was my mom, I'd be like, hello. You don't remember how old I am in every moment of your life? Welcome, Katie. Thank you. Unless you wrote something, then I'll check just in case. Sometimes it pops up, even if you're a member and you're saying something, it'll say you've just joined. So I'll double check.
Married for 5 years, very early on, like not too long after high school, I married him. And that was a very difficult, I asked for that divorce.
Okay.
And then Chris, I mean, I think he and I knew we weren't going to stay married for very long. Whatever.
Which, from the public eye, I'm sure everyone is like so fascinated. I mean, you guys were, for people who know Extreme Makeover, things like that, like you guys were this perfect Barbie and Ken. So I'm sure that like the world hit you with all of that as well when you came out with it.
You know, I think so. It's interesting how judge something based on how it looks instead of how it is, right? And Chris and I both, we might look like we belong together physically, and the truth is
we may look like brother and sister and also lovers, because that's apparently something that is hard to determine these days. There's even like a whole Instagram, it's like brothers or siblings or dating. Apparently that's a thing. You end up like marrying someone you look like, I guess, or that's like a common thing. I don't know. I ain't getting involved in that whole discussion. But yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of times influencers, Rachel Hollis included, others that have, couples in the public sphere, they will be quick to be like, oh, well, of course you guys have this perception that you've just made up in your head about our relationship, but you could never know what's going on inside. It's like, yeah, but your Instagram posts for like the time you were together definitely alluded to the fact that you were happy, amazing, wonderful. And I get that, but it's also like, don't shirk off the responsibility of presenting yourself in a certain light. It's very much, we were picking up the vibes that you were throwing out type of thing.
Like this, he and I co-parent Liz better than any 2 people that I know. Like he and I are so good at co-parenting, but also a lot of it is knowing what relationship you're meant to have with that person. Does that make sense? Like he and I, and he would agree. It wasn't like it wasn't like, oh, he broke my heart. And we knew marriage was not for us. I don't know. I think he said,
Yeah. Okay. So that's the second time she said, she's like, we knew we wouldn't be married long. We both knew marriage wasn't for us. This is all new information. I had not heard this version of things. I heard Heidi did not want to get, I was going to say demarried. She didn't want to get divorced. And Chris wanted to. And Chris has expressed that he never wanted to get married. That's sort of known. But, you know, they were going to have kids and that whole thing. So, I mean, to say like, oh, we both knew it wasn't going to work out. That's a new narrative. And maybe that was the narrative the whole time and she was just lying before, but something has definitely changed in the last ever. This is the first time she's ever said any of this, from my knowledge, publicly at least. But yeah, I don't know. I think and then he said on a story, Instagram story, so I don't have it, but basically he said that because people basically, okay, this is like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, Heidi was talking about Chris and saying, I'm so upset that like the family got broken up, and she was like crying or something and putting stuff on her stories. And then I guess people from there were going to Chris's Instagram and saying, you're a homewrecker, you ruined this family, and like saying stuff to him. So he responded and saying, Heidi did something that is unforgivable, and that's why we're no longer together. That was like what he said in the stories. Then we listened to an interview probably 3 months ago where Chris was talking about the divorce and said he was the worst version of himself when he was with Heidi, and he feels so much better now that he's out of the relationship. He's a better father, he's a better everything, because he's no longer, with Heidi romantically. So that's been the narrative. Now this is all of a sudden like, we knew from the get-go that marriage is just not for us. It's like, okay, whatever.
That he'll never get married again. I don't know that I'll ever get married again. I really don't.
Right.
But he's definitely more of he is here on this earth for a purpose, and the purpose is to change the world. And he's been like this since I met him. He has a mission, and his mission is that, but also his kids, right? And so marriage, I don't think is ever going to be in the cards for him, because it just doesn't make sense. And I am someone who, I love connection, I love relationship, and so it wasn't a good match in that way. But
who initiated that conversation between you and Chris?
Well, okay, so he's told this publicly, so I'll tell it. It's not Chris actually never wanted to get married, and I have done. I mean, I'm a different person now than I was when I married him. Like, I had a pretty stunted emotional and mental process growing up because of just the way that my dad was and our household was, and religion. And so I have been on hyperspeed. Like, I've evolved as a new person every 5 years, maybe even less. But I was a very timid, shy girl when Chris and I met, and I wanted his love so bad. I would have taken anyone's love. And I'm so lucky. I tell Chris this all the time. Like, I am so lucky I found you, because I was a really insecure, didn't know who I was, kind of a human at that point. And I am lucky, like, that your love was the love that I worked for, and that together we built these amazing things because of it. And because of his example of dreaming and creating and not taking himself so seriously and being careless on camera, like, I learned how to be the best version of me,
I don't think the therapist is contributing much at all to this conversation. Yeah, that all sounds good. This is the part where I'm like, okay, she's fairly self-aware, more than I realize that she is, or that she has been publicly before. She'll say like, I know all my issues, but then sort of skirt around them, or say like, but at the end of the day, like, I'm happy and I'm perfect and my family is wonderful, and anything that happened to me before is no consequence today. At least here she's sort of acknowledging like, okay, I, had some trauma in my past. I don't know if she said it here, but she says it at some point, like she had like abuse. And she doesn't go into detail specifically, but the fact that she's acknowledging that, I think, is a good step forward. I think she might be trying to hurt Chris a little bit here with, I would have taken anyone's love, and it wasn't him specifically that she cared for. I mean, whether that's true or not, it's kind of effed up to say in an interview format like this, because that is the father of your 2 children and also someone you claim to really, enjoy their friendship. So just to say like, I didn't care about him ever in a real way, maybe it's true, but it's also something that I wouldn't want shared about me in a format like this. If this, if I was married or whatever, or divorced, it's just sort of mean, but I can at least applaud the attempt at truthfulness here. But again, like, I don't think the therapist could chime in now and say like, well, let's break that down. When you say this, what do you mean? Like, I need a little bit, she's just kind of going off on a tangent, and I wish she would have, I forget her name, Dr. Liz would have, reined it in a little bit so we can like get a grasp on what's going on.
So he did not want to get married. However, he has always known he wanted kids. And I was like, you're going to have to marry me if you want kids. I'm like, great, I'll get the guy to marry. Because I thought I could make him a hopeless romantic like me. Like, maybe if I just show him. But it's just like he and I, it was kind of like putting a, what do they say? Putting a square peg in a round hole. No, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Square peg in a round hole is what it was for us to be married.
Right.
But alleviating. So he and I both knew. We did therapy for 3 years. Every week, we would even fly to a therapist in LA for it.
So while Rachel Hollis was flying to LA to get her highlights done, her roots touched up, Heidi and Chris were flying to LA for therapy. And I have to feel bad about, keeping my lights on for 5 minutes too long. Come on.
Not trying to fix it, but we did it trying to figure out what the best path was. Because I was terrified of being twice divorced. I was terrified of my 2 kids with him going through what my 2 kids went through with my last divorce. Right. And so it was really like, hey, is it better for them to sit inside of something that is not good? Because you can have 2 really great people. Because we both are great people. Yeah. And you can be in a situation that is not good and create toxicity. Like 2 wonderful hearted people can actually have a toxic home life.
Absolutely.
No shit.
The cameras don't always catch it, right? Like,
right. And it sounds like a big part of it was that your emotional needs probably weren't being met because of the differences in your guys's, the way you show up in that way. And it sounds like he was really focused on his goals, changing the world, and you really crave connection. And I talk about that all the time when our emotional needs, when our deepest needs, right, aren't being met, we show up as the worst versions of ourselves, no matter how great of people we are. And so it sounds like that
I need one of these like Instagram influencers, one of these therapists / life coaches / relationship experts / whatever, to explain to me, what does show up mean? Does that mean waking up in the morning and living your life? Or is there some other definition that I'm just not comprehending? They all use it. When you show up in the best way, show up as the best version. Is this like in public? Is this at an event? Like, show up. Like, how does that, I don't know the physicalness of that. And I always feel like it's intermixed. Like they just mean it in some other way that doesn't actually equate to anything. Because how are you showing up? Like I don't know, showing up in what? Like you're existing with the partner, you're relating to the partner, you're not showing up. That's like a different word to me, or a different phrase that means something else. Like showing up is going to an event, you showed up. Oh, you have an appointment at this time, you showed up for that. Not your day-to-day life, living, breathing, eating, sleeping, all that. That's just existence.
It was kind of, you knew it was, I've put on Instagram before, like the wrong environment will always make us feel like there's something wrong with us. And it sounds like that's kind of what was going on.
Interestingly, halfway through his and my marriage, we just started growing separate. We both were growing. And I actually think I became my best version of myself in that. It was also the hardest part. Yeah. Which is what made it easier when he had decided. It was like, okay, I kind of knew, and I've been prepping myself for it, right? Yeah. I remember him saying, and he said it on a podcast, he hated who he was inside of a marriage. I did not hate who I was at all.
Sure.
I didn't like the situation, but and this happened in my first marriage too.
And I will also say that's sort of mean too on Chris's part to say that you hated yourself, who you were when you were with your partner. I mean, that's also something I feel like I don't know if I need to hear that as an outsider that has nothing to do with their relationship. But here we are, very socially digging deep.
I didn't love the relationship that my first husband and I had, but I can find happy anywhere. And I think that that's part of, I was an abused child. And so part of being an abused child is even when things aren't good, only being able to see the good in it and like thinking that it's good. Right. And then when I step outside of it, I can be like, oh, okay. But my thing is the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So even if something's not good for me, like the marriage was not good for me or Chris, because he hated who he was, it brought out hard parts of both of us. But like, I was always like, oh, but it's still awesome. Like, even though it's not what, like we talk, all these people have, like, I still love it because we're best friends. Like, I just had this, like, we're great. And I really thought that it was, but now outside of it and having experienced love in a different way with someone else, and also, and more importantly, when you said emotional needs not being met, I spent a lot of my life trying to get my emotional needs met. I have. And I just recently, over this past year, realized I am the only one who can meet my emotional needs. And I'm the only one who I want to meet my emotional needs.
Yes.
I believe that a man or a woman, whatever, regardless, can
What? No, I don't think she means anything by that. Yeah, so she's about to get into the Dave stuff soon. So if you're buckling up, this is the Dave stuff coming up soon. Right now, she's talking about Chris mostly, as per usual, and her relationship with Chris. She mentioned Derek a little bit, that she didn't have that great of a relationship with him in the marriage. After the divorce, they weren't that great. But her and Chris, you know, she was so glad to have been with him, even though they both knew the marriage wasn't going to last and that he never wanted to be married to her in the first place. But she felt like, you know, he brought the best out of her. That's what she said so far. And now she's saying, well, then she got loved by Dave, I'm assuming, but she's going to go into that. So she didn't say Dave, she said someone else, but let's be honest, it's Dave, I believe. That when she dated him, now she experienced love in a new way. So now she realizes that her and Chris didn't actually have the love that she needed, I suppose.
Compliment me or you or somebody else, we can compliment each other. But at the end of the day, there's like this epiphany that's like, oh, I'm the one. Like, I am the I am the partner. Like, look at
She's been also doing motivational speaking and coaching and transformation experting for quite a while now. And she's just realized that a relationship is not going to make you happy if that's the only thing you're betting all of your happiness on. Come on. People are paying you to help them change their lives, and you're promising them like mental health care, essentially. Like, it's very disappointing. Not surprising, but disappointing.
In the mirror, this is the partner that I need to be for myself, right? Yeah. And then everything else, you can have an interdependent relationship, but until we stop believing that somebody else is going to meet our emotional needs or fill our emotional needs, we will be forever living in codependence, which never leads to anything good.
Well, and that's exactly it. Looking for that person to complete us or to fill a void is always so detrimental. And that codependency does play such a role. I mean, the codependency plays a role in why I stayed for as long as I did in spite of knowing. And the codependency plays a role even in you being able to find the silver lining and everything, because that is survival. So
you're scared. I was scared of like, what if the other side's not better? Like, I'll just stay right here, right?
What was that like for you when you transitioned out of your marriage with Chris and then you started dating somebody new? What is that? I mean, I guess even Chris being introduced to your first ex and then your current partner being introduced, like, how was
current partner? Okay. That's what she thinks. That's what Dr. Liz thinks, current partner. Heidi, set the record straight, girl.
that navigated, and how did that go is what I'm getting at.
I think if I were to go back in time, Derek and I, my first husband, we've had more of a journey, like a harder journey, and we're in a good place right now. But it's been consistency over time, understanding and fully expecting that it's not always going to be great with us, right? And when it's not, I just need to keep showing up as who I am, and in every way positive, and we'll come around. There were some more issues that I probably shouldn't go. I don't want to.
No, totally fine.
Yeah, I don't want to. But
air all that out.
Yeah. And there, I
Thank
will
you.
say, like, even through that though, there's been so much growth on everyone's part beyond it. But it was he had a harder time with Chris. There was no affair, so it's not like that.
Yeah.
Anything of a thing like that. He had a harder time.
That time, there is speculation if there was an affair with Chris and Heidi, that Heidi had stepped out of the marriage only because Chris had said she had done something unforgivable, and Heidi has said they've had different definitions of what someone can be forgiven for. She said that, and then he said the thing about, she did something unforgivable. So obviously the assumption is a cheating scenario. I mean, there could be others, of course, like business dealings or something, but I mean, that's a pretty strong guess, is that Heidi had some sort of, whether it was emotional or physical, who knows, but some sort of step out of the marriage with him, but not with, she's saying not with Derek, didn't happen with Derek, but with Chris, that's more up in the air.
Integrating into, I don't think he and I started getting along until I had a child with Chris. And then we started getting along because of some things he was going through that kind of allowed him to kind of let down his walls, and we created more of a friendship.
And then he and Chris became friends, right? Like friends, whatever that looks like they were able to
Chris was really good in the middle. Yeah, 100%. Like Chris is he wants everybody to get along always, right? And which is such a good thing, because I think a lot of people in that situation, the new man, would be super possessive of the, Chris is like someone who's like, let's figure it out. So it really did.
You have kids together with him. God, of course, I would hope, unless the guy is completely emotionally immature, you share 2 children. What is he going to do? Say like, oh, you can't hang out with your ex-husband while you're switching the children in custody? Like, that's a very young mindset. I mean, I guess she was young when she was with Derek, the first husband, but that would be a huge red flag. And not just like, oh, he is the exception to the rule that all men don't like when you get a new boyfriend when you're leaving a marriage. Like, I think that should be more of like, oh my God, I would not even think about dating a guy who would not be able to handle me having a relationship with my ex-husband because we share children together. Now, can they like hook up and stuff? Absolutely not. But I mean, to be possessive of your girlfriend or whatever, it just seems like juvenile to me. All right, keep going.
Work well, because I think if Chris would have been someone who was more of an alpha or more intimidating, Derek would have had a harder time. Chris would have had, and there was none of that, right? So Chris helped soften any part of Derek that might have had a harder time with anything, right? Now from Chris to current. So Chris is great. Chris actually loves Dave. So Dave and I are actually not together.
Oh God. I'm so sorry.
Cool.
Okay, did we all just hear that? Let me go back. That was the first tea moment about, I'm actually not with anyone right now. And okay, just for the record, I don't know if we covered this already. This was posted December 27th, 2022. So what is that? Like, obviously not that long ago. So pretty recent. I don't know when it was recorded, but it was posted on the 27th. So less than a month ago, this came out. So the assumption was they broke up. Okay. So Heidi messaged me. I don't know. I talked about it. If you were here, you might have heard that. If you weren't, she messaged me and said, apologized for blocking me and said it was a mistake and an oversight on her behalf. okay, I was shocked, utterly shocked. I had never reached out to her. I've never contacted her in any way. The only person I've ever contacted in this whole thing was one time to Dave Hollis through email, and in a very, in my opinion, professional way of, you know, if we'd like to do any sort of podcast together, I would be interested, because he had recently done a podcast about online hate that he got and he felt was unfair, and that he wanted to teach the haters about who he was as a person. And I said, hey, I think I'm one of like the stronger, in the sense of like, I've covered him a lot. One of the people who've like really dug deep into your stuff, like I would be willing to have that conversation publicly. And I got no response. That's the only thing I've ever contacted anyone of this thing. And I don't recommend contacting anyone at all, ever. So when she messaged me on Instagram, I was taken aback. And I responded a couple days later and asked her to come on the show. She said she would, which I was surprised as well about. And she even sent me voice memos to prove that it was her and not just like a bot or something. But it was obvious it was her, because it was her like account, her verified account. But anyways, I had asked her because it seemed like they had broken up, and I said at a later date, because she didn't get back to me about, okay, does she actually want to come on the show or not? And then it was sort of like Dave was missing. So I said, hey, are you guys broken up? And then she said, what if we were never together? And I was like, okay. And I didn't say anything back, because I'm like, all right, maybe I said like, what are you talking about? And then she didn't respond. And that's been the entire like timeline of our conversations. And that I sent the last message to her maybe like before Christmas, definitely before Christmas break. So like a month and a half ago. So yeah, so I don't know what her point was there, if she actually is genuinely wanting to address things. She said I was really funny, which I was like, okay, I don't think I'm really funny. I mean, I think I'm really funny. Okay, let me be honest. I think I'm really funny. However, if I was her, I don't think I would think I'm really funny. I think I would think, if I was her, that I'm super critical. I've been very harsh, you know, in the sense of like, if you were to look at this as a person who's being talked about. But she seemed to like not address that at all. She's like, oh, you're actually really funny. I'm like, okay, thank you. Anyways, so the answer is no, she's not coming on the show as far as I know. I would love to have her. Open invite, Heidi, of course. But she was saying that, you know, they were never together. I'm like, I don't believe that for 1 second. So anyways, that timeline seems to be about when this was coming out, probably when it was recorded. Did that answer the question that I posed to myself? Not sure if that did, but let's continue.
So Chris is great. Chris actually loves Dave. So Dave and I are actually not together.
Oh, God. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Let me air out all of your trauma here, Heidi.
No, I mean, the thing is, it's going to come out at some point. It's just one of those things I don't necessarily feel like I owe it to everybody to say. I never confirmed when we got back together. He and I have broken up 4 different times, right?
Okay.
So it's like, but he and I are great friends.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that. That's the first time they've ever confirmed they've actually broken up. They've always insinuated different things. Like one time someone asked, are you with Heidi still? Or are you and Heidi friends, or are you dating, or business partners? Are you guys, sorry. Someone asked, are you and Heidi dating or just business partners? And he responded, business partners, but it was a picture of them kissing. So I don't know. It was sort of like, okay, always up in the air. You know, Heidi would make it seem like, I don't need no man, when she was doing her son's tie, and, you know, kind of alluding that, oh, like, I'm a strong, independent woman. But then like 3 days later, Dave would be in the background of a video. So there was never, ever, ever until this podcast, from my understanding, any confirmation that they've ever broken up. Now you can all assume, I have assumed a million times that they've broken up here and there. But this is the first time. So, okay. So officially they're no longer together right now. They're best friends. They're still friends. She's going to say that they're work partners too. Still, for what reason? I don't know, and don't think that's healthy. That's codependence to me. Like, you are broken up, be friends, but why are you going to work together? I don't, they can't be making that much money. She can't be benefiting that much from his expertise as a Disney executive in her 300-person online fitness group, I would imagine. But anyways.
Distance is hard, and we'll get into that, you know, if we want to in a little bit. But he actually still works with me, so there's still a connection with Dave and I. But
Why?
Chris has been the greatest with me dating somebody new. I will say that, like, the greatest. And
Why
I
would he
think
care?
what if it was anybody other than Dave, Chris would not have been.
Mm.
But I mean, poor Dave.
How can you say that? He wanted the divorce. He initiated the divorce. You've been divorced for over 2 years now. Why would he have any say or any right to say, like, oh, I'm not okay with this? Like, other than, okay, who can be around your children? That's a different conversation. But why would he have any sort of rights to say, oh, I only approve of Dave Hollis? That sounds, again, juvenile and weird.
Dave, the world, I know that man in and out, the good, the bad, the ugly. I know everything.
Right.
The
Tell
world
us.
has a perspective of him that is really inaccurate and really sad. And it's actually awesome to see his resilience through it. But Chris has been Chris has loved him from the moment he met him. And what Chris loves the most is that Dave treats his kids, my kids, really, really, really well.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing for me. I mean, obviously you have to treat me well, but you have to love my kids. You have to at least act like you love them as fiercely as I do. If you don't,
Yeah.
like, it's very important.
Just act like you like my kids. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about Dave's. I don't know. I'm not there every day. But just based on what I've seen, he's put them in uncomfortable positions so many times. His children, particularly, because he has control of them. I can't speak for hers with Dave because that's her choice as a parent, whether she exposes them to Dave's behavior. But, you know, the being put online with probably not much consent. I mean, even if you can consent, your child's 5 years old, you know, they're just trying to please you. He's got his kids constantly online. He's trying to make money through his daughter with the Tea Time book. He tried to make a monetizable video series with his son, Ford, at one point. And I say it's monetizable, not just for fun, because he had it as part of his documentary launch that was supposed to go out after Built Through Courage was written, which never happened. And part of the bonus, of going into the theater, you're going to get a bonus episode with his son. So it's just that creepiness that, like, he's profiting off of the personalities of his children. Hate that. Don't love that. And then, of course, Pancake Gate. We cannot ignore that, because very similar to Toilet Gate with Rachel Hollis, when she went on her TikTok and basically proclaimed that, you know, she gets up earlier than everyone else, and that there's a sweet lady who comes and cleans her toilets twice a week. And the reason that she gets that advantage in life is because Rachel works hard, and she works harder than anyone else, and she doesn't want to be like you anyways. So why would you think she wants to be relatable? That's sort of the gist of that, right?
I want to be relatable. Most people won't get up at 4 a.m.
She was pissed off. She was fired up. She was all up in her, she's already obsessed with herself. She loves herself so much. Great. She's completely succeeded in the self-love department. Thanks, Carlene. But Dave's version of that scandal for Rachel's Toilet Gate was its own thing. We're not going to really focus on that today, right now. But Dave's version of that is Pancake Gate, which is when Built Through Courage, his second book, came out, and he was promised, or he was thinking in his head, that he was going to go on this national book tour. And he no longer had Rachel Hollis attached to him that was, successful anymore. He was a divorced father of 4 who is now claiming in 2 months' time has solved all of his own issues by using a map in this very confusing book and whatever. So he thought he was going to get, like, the red carpet rolled out for him. Didn't happen. The last second, him and Heidi decide to go on their own makeshift, meet us in the parking lot of the Container Store in Denver tomorrow kind of tour. And he had people show up, which I think, see, correct use. I think he should have been over the moon happy about that, because the amount of effort he put in was low. The amount of planning he put in was nothing. And the amount of audacity that he had to think that he wouldn't have to plan in advance is ridiculous. And he still had support. And he still didn't like it. There was not enough people showing up again, to these events, in my opinion. So he comes home after this book tour. He sits on his patio. He hasn't slept the whole night. He goes on a 2-hour Instagram live stream rant where his kids are trying to get his attention. His 5-year-old daughter is asking for him to make breakfast. He keeps ignoring her. He keeps kind of like snipping at her too, and his son. And he's not being a very good, jovial parent. He's like desperately, pleading with people to buy his book, and that's going to change your life. And then why are you even following me if you're not going to buy my book? I mean, that's the gist of the whole thing. That's where this comes from.
$18 stinking.
So anyways, I can't ignore that when Heidi says he's the best father to his children. I'm sorry, he's not. He's just not. He has money, he can provide for them. That's great. But that is 1% of the picture. Also, he was totally fine with joining together forces with your family very, very quickly. And then now you're broken up. Where's the responsible parenting there, Dave? So Heidi, that might be your opinion that he's an amazing dad to his children. But I think from an outsider, the perspective and the perception is he has a lot of work to do. So again, the whole rant is just to say, I'm not really on Heidi's page when she's saying that that's an accurate, statement that can be made with no questioning. All of that to say, don't agree with you, Heidi.
Important to me.
I completely get that.
And so, yeah, Chris has been good. But like, if you were to put some a-hole in my life, Chris would have a real problem with it, and he would not be quiet about it.
How much time do you spend? So my ex and I, we do family dinner every Wednesday with our kid, and we do holidays together and, all of that. We probably spend, well, according to the women who he takes on dates, we spend far too much time together. So
that's funny.
That poor man.
Yeah. So you're asking how much time I spend with?
Well, yeah. So that's, yes. Like we get so much feedback on people's opinions, and so a lot of people are like, that's really cool. Like to say it's only for our kid would not be accurate. Like Richard is just one of my favorite humans. Like I just adore him. He is so supportive. He's so kind. He, when we talk about in terms of like attachment styles, and I can relate to what you're describing about your upbringing, abusive upbringing, a lot of spiritual abuse that went on. And so it's just a lot of chaos as an adult of trying to figure all of that out. And Richard has been what somebody has described before as like my lighthouse. And that is so true. But the romantic connection is not there for me in that way. And so we get caught up in that because we do spend so much time together because we enjoy each other.
Yeah.
But he's like currently trying to date. Good for him. He should trying to move on and trying to date, and people just don't get that. And so, yeah, I guess how much
I'm sorry, I don't get it either. I mean, I am being judgmental. I mean, just as a person, I don't know how you can, or you're supposed, I wouldn't, if someone, not that I'm, available to date, but if I was single and I was going to meet a man and he was like, I spend a really long time a week with my ex-wife because we're best friends, I would be like, I'm out. Thanks. You don't have room emotionally for another partner right now. It sounds like she doesn't want to let go. And, she seems like, well, he's moving on. It's like, yeah, he should. You're not romantically interested in him. Let him find a partner who is romantically interested in him. Why are you going to take up a lot of his time? Like, I understand the kid and the sharing and all of the cordialness and all of that. But like beyond that, as a therapist, I don't know why this is like great idea. I'm missing the part where it's healthy. Personally,
do you spend the same amount of time with Derek and with Chris, or what does that look like?
It depends on the phase, because Derek has worked for me a handful of different times, and me and Chris, and so we tend to spend more time together when we're working together. He doesn't right now, but that being said, I remember a point between when Chris and I were going through a divorce. And Derek and I spent a lot of time together because the way that I see them both, they both are like brothers to me. Like there's absolutely, from either of us, not from Chris or.
I don't know. I would never want my ex-husband, I don't have one, but if I did, my hypothetical ex-husband, to say, I just see her as like a sister. It's like, please don't say that. Even if we were broken up, I don't want you to say that ever.
and Derek to me and me to them, there is zero sexual attraction, zero. And I also know if I like had to go on a vacation somewhere and they're like, you got to bring one person and blah, blah, blah. It can't be Dave, right? Because I would pick Dave because Dave's so much, without a doubt, I wouldn't pick a girlfriend. I'm the most comfortable with Derek, with Chris, and I just am, because we've lived so much life together. We have commonalities in that we have kids, and like no one cares about the funny, cute things that my kids do like their dads. You know what I'm saying? And I can have deep conversations with the both of them. So when Chris and I were going through a divorce, Derek was super supportive to me and to Chris independently. Like Chris and I didn't have an attorney. We just did a mediator that did the paperwork for us. And Derek was our mediator. Like I knew he had.
Oh yeah, I thought that was extremely odd as well. And just something that I was like, oh, okay. Derek, Heidi's first husband, acted as the mediator of the divorce between Chris and Heidi. So when they had to untangle all this business stuff between Transform, the app, the protein powder, the house, the kids, the whatever, it was Heidi's first husband who was overseeing that. What? Like, you know, Dave and Rachel got high-powered attorneys. I don't know if they're high-powered, but they got attorneys. And they said that there was a huge process of the mediation and they were fighting and it was brutal. Rachel described it as brutal, and the divorce process. I mean, they have a lot of things to undo. Now, it sort of shows that they're both mature in a way that they were able to do it without the court system. Maybe you could spin it like that. But you couldn't find a family member or someone else that's not your ex-husband, your first one, to be that person. I don't know, just red flags all around.
Had my best interest at heart, and I knew that he had Chris's best interest at heart. I knew that Derek had his kids and there's just a knowing that he loves my kids fiercely, including Chris's kids. So he and I spent a lot of time together, and absolutely not even a hand graze ever happened. Like I couldn't even imagine, right? And he's the same way. It's like a hand graze with your sister. But the Instagram, there were so many comments from people, and we would laugh. And for a while, it was hard for Derek because Derek, he was like, I just don't like. What if people think that we're together? I think they think we're together, and I'm like, but we're not. And he, right. In fact, I think some people.
It's good for my engagement, Derek. Shut up. It's really good for views. This is why I'm doing it. Yeah, I don't know. I remember that period of time, right before she started dating Dave. She was with Derek a lot in photos and they were always hanging out. And then all of a sudden he exited stage left, and then Dave moved in immediately. Not moved in. I mean, I guess he did technically. He bought a house in Arizona, but he came in and swooped in, and then I never saw Derek again in any sort of social capacity. So I don't know. It was a little just odd. Why all of a sudden would you want to be his friend other than just comfort? I get that, but that's not healthy. That's sort of admitting oh, I really needed just anybody and I only had my ex-husband available. I mean, that's not bad, but it's just not oh, let me teach you how I did it, to my followers. Let me show you how good relationships are. Me and my ex-husband we're best friends again, and now we're not. I don't know. It's okay, it happened, fine, move forward. But this is not, again, it's something that I think should be held up in. This is a really healthy way to be with your relationships.
People thought that part of why Chris and I separated was because Derek and I, there's rumors which were not even close to true. But there then came a point where Derek was like, you know what? The next person, if she's not okay with the relationship that I have with the mother of my kids, she's not my person, Yeah. And Chris and I, we just spent an hour and a half talking last night about some of the, you say, lighthouse type things, right? A lot of the trauma that is coming up in my mind that I went through as a kid. And so Chris is someone I can have really deep conversations with, and there's zero threat with Dave. But again, that's for me. I don't care if
You're not with Dave, I thought. Why would there be a threat if you're not with Dave? Oh my God, I'm so confused. And also, I've been through this too. Not this exact situation. Wouldn't that be crazy? I relate to this. I am on the Relatable Relationship podcast. I also have 2 ex-husbands, and they're all friends, and they all work for me, and they're also my mediators. Wouldn't that be so weird? Oh, I relate to this in the sense of before you get into therapy, or before I got into therapy, I would not use, but I would definitely take advantage of someone who is open and willing to talk to me emotionally about things that I was a little bit closer to, but I feel like I overused it. I needed to be in therapy. I had so much stuff to work out, but I would just like call the person I was really close to at the time. And then it wasn't fair to them because they feel like, well, I think in my mind, they feel like, well, of course I like you. I want to help you, but they're not qualified. They're not equipped. And that's like heavy stuff. Maybe, I don't think Chris was Mormon, I don't believe. So she's got, trauma from being a Mormon and that whole thing. He can't really help. So it's almost burdening him with your deep emotional issues. Like it's at a certain point, you got to say enough's enough. I'm glad he's there for me, but I'm not going to abuse or even use it very often because I need to go handle this, like she said, herself.
If a man is upset by my relationship with my exes, I really don't care. It's not my right person if it is. And I think both of the guys feel the same way now.
Do women though because I say the same thing, and that's why I always say to Richard, I'm like, I don't even let the conversation, Richard. Like I'm probably like people are they look at me and I'm like, by the way, I'm best friends with my ex. Like I'm like, you can't, like you are gonna know it the second that you're like in my sphere. But for him, obviously, like he gets a lot more pushback than I do. Also, I'm not trying to be in a relationship. So that's why it doesn't bother me in the same way.
But girl, because you are in a relationship with Richard, your ex-husband. You just don't know it.
This situation is a red flag.
You got enough of a relationship emotional attention from him, it seems. That's why it's not important to you. Okay, sorry. That's my judgment. Sorry.
But do you find that women are more intimidated? Like, so for Chris and Derek, the women that they do date, do they get pushback about you? Like, even if Chris and Derek don't care, do they still hear it?
To be honest, Derek's really only dated one person seriously since he and I.
Hot piping tea.
I put out so much crap.
I don't know if that really worked.
Get your hearts ready.
He dated someone seriously? Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Okay, going back just a second. Okay. I'm just going to let it ride.
To be honest, Derek's really only dated one
Derek,
person.
Sorry. I misheard because she said Chris and then she said Derek. Okay, Derek's only dated one person seriously since they broke up. Okay, but it's been like 11 years or something like that. Never mind. I want to know if Chris has dated anybody.
Since he and I. And she and I were good friends. And so we didn't have an issue with that. Like we were really good friends. We still are to this day. And I met her through Derek. Chris, I don't think he would ever date the kind of girl that would ever have jealousy over that. I really don't. Like, I think their pickers are like, they would probably pick somebody like me who would, I
in denial.
And also I don't think Chris cares to waste time dating right now.
I blame him. Right there with him.
I have the best situation. And this is me looking for the silver lining, but I really do, because I have 2 guys who are so devoted to their life and their kids right now. They're not, I haven't had to deal with any of that in 15 years. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Not one bit.
I don't buy that. I think she just chooses not to acknowledge that maybe she is in the way of them having successful relationships by simply being so involved in their lives, and maybe they haven't set the boundaries that they need to set.
Yeah. But like, I do think of the kind of person that would be jealous, and neither of those guys would be attracted to that kind of a person,
I think where it gets sticky.
I don't know if a jealousy is the right thing, but I think a woman having a radar and going, this is not something a healthy person should be in, and I'm going to exit out. That is like the sign that someone's healthy. If they're like, you're really close friends with your ex-wife and you guys hang out and cuddle and talk for hours on the phone, I don't have time for that bullshit. I'm going to leave. So you're going to end up with someone who's super unhealthy, who's unwilling to see that that is potentially a red flag.
This person is not okay.
Thanks, Rachel.
Is that like, I don't think you have to be a jealous person to not love that your ex spends a bunch of time with their ex. Like, just looking at it from a very like high level logical, obviously you and I have very different perspectives because we do it. And the way you're describing Chris and Derek being siblings, that's how I describe to people all the time. That's literally how Richard and I are. Richard and I are each other's family. Like we got married so young. We moved hours and hours away from our parents, who neither of us were close to or felt safe with anyways. So that was fine. But it was just the two. I mean, children, like we talk about it. So our son being 15, and we're like, could you imagine in 2.5 years him getting married and doing what we did? Like, it was insane. But because of that, we had to grow up with each other and we had to really rely on each other in a different way. So we are for sure family. But I do think about it from the perspective of people who don't get that and just not getting that.
I mean, here's the reality is I've dated not long term, but like short little bursts of men who didn't like it. Mm-hmm. And I do not like men who are like that. Like I very quickly learned that's just not for me. I could literally go on a vacation with either of them, and Dave would be like, "Go for it," because he just knows, right? Like
because he's not emotionally invested. He doesn't care, probably. He's hung up on his ex. That's the dynamic that you're probably in right now, which is not a good one. Because it all happens so fast. There's so many kids involved. There's so much stuff. It's like, and that's, again, at the end of the day, the people who are suffering the most are the 8 children that are involved between all of these parents and dynamics and all of that. And they sort of, you got to have your own life. You got to do whatever. But like, to share all this publicly, red flag. To not really consider how many lives are being impacted by children while they're developing, having to go between Rachel and her boyfriend and Heidi and her boyfriend and her ex-husband, and then flying to Arizona and Texas and Hawaii as a group. And then it's like, that's a lot of upheaval that I think could put a strain on any family. And it's like, I don't hear any of that consideration. I don't like jealous girls who, don't understand. What about the kids? Whatever.
Trust me and all that kind of a thing. Now, I do think this too, that I'll add is anytime my exes have dated somebody more seriously, I am very aware of how the other woman might feel. And 100%, I'm very like, I think now that I think about it, we might both kind of tone it back, because I don't ever want that woman to think that I'm trying to. And I have a handful of really great best friends. I really do. And so giving them the space and
name them. And what are you talking about? How does this relate to they're going to date Derek and Chris? Let me go back a second. I missed something. Hold on.
Really great best friends. I really do. I'm very aware of
I went back. Sorry. So she's pretty aware. So she asked like, well, what would you think about them dating someone else? Is that what the question was? Sorry.
That's just not for me. I could literally go on a vacation with either of them, and Dave would be like, "Go for it," because he just knows, right? Like he trusts me and all that kind of a thing. Now, I do think this too, that I'll add is anytime my exes have dated somebody more seriously, I am very aware of how the other woman might feel. And 100%. I'm very like, I think now that I think about it, we might both kind of tone it back, because I don't ever want that woman to think that I'm trying to. And I have a handful of really great best friends. I really do. And so
I still don't get it.
Giving them the space and the just respect to like do what they need to do and build that. And so, because I know for me, when I'm dating a man, it's funny because with them, there's not. When I'm dating a man, though, I want that man to have eyes for me.
Yeah.
I expect it. I 100% expect that man. Like, and if he doesn't, or if there's like, I want to know if I'm going to spend that much time and give that much,
It's okay for thee, but not for me. Thank you, Heidi.
find the man who wants me as their best friend. Right.
Right.
And so I think of how I would want it if it were reverse. And then I kind of honor that for them. And so we've never had any issues. Usually we start connecting more after they break up. We're like, oh, hey, we're back, but we see each other and all that stuff. Yeah.
Have you dated somebody? So like, I guess flipping it on the reverse.
Yes, Dr. Liz, get into the tea.
Have you dated somebody who is as close to their ex as you are to yours?
I wish you'd be like, yes, his name is Richard. I'm actually dating someone new right now. His name is Richard. Have you ever heard of? Oh, oopsies. Sister wife, brother husbands. Yes, that could be the best conglomerate TLC show I've ever seen. I'll watch it. I'll watch it and report every week.
No. So Dave is really the only person that I've dated seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I haven't had to worry about that.
Yeah. See, and so I think about that.
I don't worry about that at all. But that's what I'm saying. If Dave was super close and spending a lot of time with his ex, I don't know that that's a relationship I care to be in, because I only have so much energy. But that's a good thing is
That's unfair. What the fuck? That's so unfair. Oh, if I'm going to be with someone, he has to have eyes for me. He can't be spending his time with his ex. Okay, but it's fine for you and give them the same opportunity. That's so messed up. That's unfair. That is not fair at all whatsoever. And I wonder if this contributed to why Rachel and Dave have sort of a bad relationship. So it seems they had like a decent one in the beginning, then it went to nothing. Now it seems like it might be improving a little bit, but I wonder if she is a bigger part of the problem than I originally suspected, just given how she thinks. Like, I don't want her around. I wonder if Dave was being too friendly with Rachel, and that bothered her, because that's what she just said, that she doesn't want to be in that situation. She doesn't have enough time. She's got her two other best friend brothers to hang out with, I guess.
It's not like I'm jealous, I'd be worried. It's I only have so much bandwidth in my life outside of my 4 kids and the business that I do. Mm-hmm. And so I want...
Your ex-husbands have businesses too and things to do. Give them that same grace. Come on, that's unfair. Back to Heidi explaining some crazy shit.
Want to know that in my spare time, the person that I'm with is somebody who I'm not like, oh man, you're over at your ex-wife's again and now I gotta wait. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I want to know that like he's for me, right?
Right. And I did date somebody who they didn't like each other, but they spent time with each other similarly to the way Richard and I do. And I could understand it because I was doing the same thing. And so like, I could get that, but I was also aware that I didn't love it. Like just being completely honest, like I didn't love that I was giving up time, to your point, that we could have been spending together because, he is with her, with them. And so
this is like when you go and hang out with a friend and you both have the same, like toxic trait. Like you go hang out, you have like a shopping addiction and you go hang out with your friend who also has a shopping addiction and you both just gaslight each other, or gas each other up, or you're at the store, you're like, should I buy this? Yes. Oh my God. I would totally buy that. If I was you, I would buy that in a second. And you're like, all right, yeah, okay. And the other one's like, should I buy this? Ah, yes. And it's like, if anyone else was in that scenario, you'd be like, oh my God, this is like 2 people that are just like in a very unhealthy place. But because they're together, it's like, wow, like, oh, this is such an invigorating conversation. It's like, both of these people, I don't think, are experts on relationships, at least healthy ones, in my humble opinion. And I see it's coming through. KT, thank you. KT says, do you still believe in a Rachel Dave reunion? Hell yes, I do. Yes, I do. I think that is the ultimate path to redemption, to salvation for the Hollis Co. brand. I really do. As much as I think I've been surprised that like Heidi and Dave have stayed together so long, or even in this off again thing, on again, off again, and Kez and her have stayed together, Rachel, for so long, I still think ultimately there will be a reunion. I don't know why. I just have a feeling. There's a couple, I just think that Rachel will figure it out, that is the best way to make a lot of money, is to get back with him and then prove, like sell the story of they were, broken apart because of pressures of being mommies and daddies of business boys and business babes. And now they've figured it out and they're going to teach you. I mean, makes business sense to me. Unless Kez proposes and then, she'll just have his money and that'll be it.
I'm about to mess this up.
Hell yeah, but good question. And speaking of...
This girl a mess, y'all.
Shout out Kendra. Okay, here we go.
Definitely. But I think there's also, so like, as you're saying, trying to be respectful about it, that's something that I try to be really aware of, like on both sides. So as the ex, like you're saying, not trying to be like overly intrusive, but then also having the awareness. So if I am dating somebody and that they have that relationship with their ex, that I am trying to be, understanding of
100%
the importance of it.
Like I am all for a good relationship, but I guess the best way to put it is with Chris and I, while we talked for an hour and a half last night, we don't just go out as friends ever. Like we never have. Same with me and Derek. While he and I can have a really deep, meaningful conversation about really anything, he and I have never just hung out as friends. I think we have once, and it was in the middle of and it was really awkward to like be like, let's be friends and let's hang out. But so he and I think we have a really good relationship, but I wouldn't say that it's like I'm going to go hang out when I have a boyfriend, right? It's not that I don't think that's bad. But not bad either way. It's just, I don't have that. And I think too, even if I wasn't dating somebody.
So once you get the emotional attention you so desire, then you're satisfied. Yeah, that's the undertone throughout this whole thing. That's why she's not dating. She's not dating anyone because she's got the emotional attention and probably, devotion from Richard, who she's no longer attracted to. And when she's got Dave, oh my God, there, it's all mirrored. When she's got Dave, what does she need Derek for? She doesn't need him anymore. Duh. Okay, that's what they're saying without saying here.
Somebody, I would have different male friends. Now I have male friends that I am still friends with, even when I have relationships, right? Sure. So that to me is different. Like, I have guys that I would hang out with as a friend that are not Derek or Chris, if that makes sense.
Right.
But part of, I think, why there's a relationship, but maybe not I'm just going to come hang out with you kind of a friendship. I think it allows us it puts us in a place where we're not going to fight over much, which is really great. So we can keep a really good, there's boundaries, right? So we can keep a really great relationship around the kids and all the things with we're not in each other's space all the time, which can kind of annoy people. So we're not as close as you and your ex, but we're really great, if that makes sense.
Well,
is that a story worth talking about on a podcast? Oh, me and my ex-husbands don't hate each other. Okay, congratulations. Why are we making this episode then? I think the weirder one is this one. Is her dynamic seems more odd than even Heidi's. I think she's trying to make it sound like it's the same thing, but it doesn't sound like it's the same thing.
For sure. And me and my ex are navigating recently if we should be as close as we are. So I'm definitely not like promoting it in the way like it is the way to be. I do believe that there's a gray area. It sounds like you guys have found that gray area. Yeah. And that's Richard and I have been talking a lot about that lately. I want him to be happy. I want him to be in a relationship, and I can't pass judgment on these women who are not comfortable with him having the relationship that he does with me. And you mentioned, working with some of your exes, and he and I work together on a lot of stuff. And so there does become a lot of overlap. So I can respect that, and I can see that. We've had just, a lot of conversations recently around, what does this look like? Do we need to pull back so that you can move on? Because
Yeah.
I feel so selfish of like, yes, he is my best friend. Yes, he is my safe person. But if he is all those things to me, I need to love him enough to let him be happy and let him find what he needs.
So it sounds like you answered your own question, Dr. Liz. Yeah, that sounds like the more healthier way to handle this situation. And actually, this podcast should probably not exist. You've come to your own conclusions. Congratulations. So now she's having an epiphany that this actually isn't the way to live. So we can end the podcast right there. But will we? No.
Yeah, you just hit on something. And there's a, like what you're talking about, everyone has, like, we're all entitled to make a list of what the ideal relationship would look like for us, right? So what my ideal relationship would look like with a man that I'm involved with on like a romantic level is different than, say, what yours, whatever. For me, the best friendship connection is the most important thing for me. Like, that's like the number one thing.
As opposed to what?
And if I feel like I can trust someone as a best friend, and I want to confide all the things to them, and I want to laugh with them, and I want to do that, that's a person I want to be with forever, because the romantic flame dies down. Like, after as many marriages as I've been in, I'll tell you, and I've dated a lot too, it goes away. It always goes.
She just said she has never dated anyone other than Dave, basically, other than her two husbands. I thought she said a minute ago.
Goes away. But the thing that I crave and I love the most is the person that I can be wholly myself. Like, every bit of who I am, like, lay it all out there. The ugly. I can wear my laser cap at night. I can say all the things that I am. And to have them see me and love me for all of it and laugh and think it's cute and funny. And that is Dave, which is why it's hard for us not to be in a relationship.
I was going to say, so why aren't you with him then? And therefore, that's why we're not together. Okay, let's unpack that.
Because he loves every single part of who I am, but distance makes it difficult. Where my exes weren't like that. And if that is you and your ex, in my mind, I'm like, man.
No, don't say it, Heidi. Don't say it. You are not allowed to join that club. If we, oh my God, had $1 for every time we heard that. We have this really close friend group who we've been friends with like for years, and we always laugh. So there's 4 of us in it, and Rich and I still hang out with them like in that way. Yeah. And they always laugh about that. When we told them we were getting divorced, they were like, you guys literally get along the best out of all of us. You guys like each other the best out of all of us. Like, what is going on? And people just, they just don't, unless you live it, you just don't get it. And so I'm going to tell Richard not to listen to this episode, because he's going to be like,
I've never divorced a person that like, we were like, okay, there's something that doesn't work here. Right. So, except for Dave, but we're not divorced. Right. But like we are constantly on and off, but it's beyond the friendship thing. But there's a part of me that's like, man, this is why I keep going on and off with the guy, because that friendship is so valuable to me.
How does the distance, how do you see that?
The distance thing is surprising, because they see each other more than most couples see each other that live near each other. Like, he was on a plane every week for the weekend, foregoing time with his own children. So it seemed on social media many times, to be with Heidi. So how much more distance can you I don't know, how much closeness do you possibly need? It seems like excessive at this point.
That show up. So I guess, especially when you're talking earlier that connection is so important to you, is that where it comes in, or how does the distance impact you guys?
So I if Dave and I don't end up getting back together, I never say never. I don't know what would, number one, we both need time on our own right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the distance, if say Dave wasn't here, right? Like, I don't know, say he moved to a foreign country and whatever, and he wasn't an option in the future, I would not be opposed to long distance with somebody else in the future. I actually really like it.
Okay.
Now there's a different situation with
what? I'm confused. Okay.
He and I, so I'll explain that. But
Please do.
I'm somebody who never liked to be alone before. Like, there's a Pink song
Heidi, you don't like being alone now. Cut this shit out. Stop saying this all the time. She has not been alone for like more than 10 minutes in her whole adult life, so it seems, at least since I've been watching her in the last 2 years. She has a weekend to herself. She flies to California to be with her mom. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just stop saying that you love being alone. You don't. You're not alone ever, 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 ever. Every single solitary moment you could be alone, you are with somebody. Now, I count the kids as people. I'm one of the few. Am I the only one who considers children people? But, you know, to be alone in my interpretation, it's like, okay, you're spending time by yourself. You're not like parenting. You're not dating. You're not with your family. Like you are alone. That's my thoughts on alone. She has not had that time, I don't think, for, like I said, 1 minute in the 2 years I've been following her.
And in it, one of the lyrics is, "The quiet scares me because it screams the truth." And that was me for so many years. And something about these last few years, 2.5 years is how long Dave and I have been dating, or we're dating. The quiet has been beautiful. But I also think I'm growing, and I realized all the things about the void is for me to fill. And what are the things I wish I had in a partner? All right, make a list of them. And Heidi, you better freaking fill these things yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so that aha moment and actually being comfortable with myself, being comfortable with my thoughts, and actually loving who I am for the first time, that has made distance actually a thing that I like with a man. I like being able to coordinate schedules to where we can be with your kids for a little bit. Like I have my kids for a week, but we could overlap to where we had just enough time with each of our kids. I had half the time with my kids, but then we'd have time alone, and then we'd have time alone with just like no kids and us. And it was so like, I love that. I love that could happen, because I feel like those are all relationships that you have to nurture. You have to nurture your relationship with yourself first. And it's hard with someone living in state. My relationship with my kids is the next most important. So I need time without him and my kids. Then it's important for he and I to have time without kids to nurture that. And then it's important for him to be with my kids just enough and me with his just enough. So that.
Find somebody else. My God, it sounds exhausting. My kids and his kids and myself and himself and alone and him alone and me alone and our community and us. Oh my God. Yikes. He's too tall to run. This can't be that great that it's worth all of this analysis. I mean, maybe it is, but I just don't think it is.
I actually really liked, but distance became hard because I had an aha moment with some anxiety attacks that I was having that I believe was, I think I knew it was over with me and Dave, and it was hard for me to accept it. Codependence, right? Yep. And it threw me into anxiety, and I had these things that were like, what is the most important thing to me in my, like, what do I want my life to look like in 10 years? All right. What do I want it to look like in 20 and 30 and 40 and 50? All right, Heidi, stop focusing so much on building your business and doing these things, and let's build the life that you want. Stop focusing on traveling back and forth to Texas. Do you see a future with Dave? Mm-hmm. And that was my biggest, and Dave and I have had very open conversation about it over the past few months. His youngest is 5. My youngest is 9. And so the reality set in. I knew, like, when I think of my life in 10 years, all my kids are going to be out of my house, all 4 of them. And I want.
You think? That's not necessarily true these days. Have you seen this economy? Have you seen the price of eggs? We may never leave our homes, ever, is what the youth of America says today.
To feel like I have worked toward building a life with somebody, right? And it's really difficult to build a life with Dave and he with me when we are both independently so rooted, and our kids are both the most important thing to both of us, right? Mm-hmm. He's very rooted in Dripping Springs and has to be, and I love that he is. And I'm very rooted in Arizona, and it does, even in weeks where we don't have our kids, I'm still home a lot because my kids have a lot of sports. He's still there. And so it is harder to build a life with somebody who also has 4 kids and is rooted across the country.
No shit.
That's really what it boils down to with he and I.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that complicated. I don't know why she had to do the whole thing about how much she loves it and how great it is, that the way that it worked was so wonderful. It sounds like very rational, very reasonable. And I was just talking, I had my therapy session this morning, and I was just talking about this, how for so long I lived my life and I still catch myself doing it, and I need to stop, or at least keep catching it, but stop doing it. Where you live in such a way that like everything's a sign, everything is, you know, guided, everything. And it's not by religion for me, but it's about like, I don't know. It was like the way that my mom parented. It's like if she made a mistake, it was like, well, nothing can ever be the wrong thing. There's no such thing as regrets. So, you know, if I screwed up or something, like, well, then it was meant to be that way, or you deserved it in some way. I think that leads to, what was I saying? This magical thinking of like, Dave and I are meant to be together, so we must defy the odds to make it work because he's my soulmate. He's the only person that can fulfill this emotional need in me. When meanwhile, if she went on 5 dates with men who live in Arizona, who may or may not have children or have a little bit less or whatever, or have kids there, but are able to stay in town, she probably would have a healthier, better, stronger relationship. But I believe that she, like me sometimes, is under this belief that certain people are meant for you, and then you should suffer to try to make it work. And 9 times out of 10, it's just not going to work. And you need to like be realistic about that. Because look, I mean, this isn't not working. See all the signs. But it's like, well, I'm not going to give up on this person that means so much. It's like, yeah, but there's other people who could mean so much to you if you just let it happen.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense because you have to, I agree that you do need to know the things you want to need in a relationship, and you have to be able to meet a lot of those things for yourself. But a big thing that I work on with my clients is for them to identify also those things in a partner. So their wants, their needs, and their boundaries, and that they write it out. They're very clear on what that looks like. And so as you're describing, you know, if that want or need is to grow roots with somebody, or is to be able to plan your future long term, and you see all the barriers in the way to do that, I mean, that's a lot of self-respect that you are willing to take what is so good and decide to sacrifice that because you know long term, you know, that's not what's best for you. It's a really hard decision, but it's a really powerful one.
I think she was insinuating, Heidi, 5 seconds ago that Dave broke up with her. So I don't think it's necessarily self-respect as much as he can't move to Arizona, so the relationship's over because that's what she wants him to do. And he's like, I can't. My children are in Texas. I have an ex-wife in Texas. This is our custody agreement. What do you want me to do? I guess we have to break up if you need me to be here. That's what it reads to me. Anyways, JB says, fails to mention lack of connection with Dave's family. Yeah, I agree. At least his extended family. You know, she can be around the kids, but that's about it, so it seems. Which, you know, may be relevant or not, I don't know. But yeah, that is something interesting that she's not gone down that lane, gone down that road with.
Yeah, you know, and I do think, though, it also, like, I'm aware enough to know that Dave and I met very soon after he and Rachel split. Like, very, I mean, there was a podcast. He invited me to do a podcast with him on his. Then Rachel had kind of said that you can have that podcast, whatever, the one that they had together. I had never listened to it. So I was just, but I was passing through Texas. So I ended up meeting, it was a few months after he and Rachel had split is when we met.
Okay.
And
it was July, and Rachel had told him in May that she didn't want to be with him anymore. So, okay, I guess a couple months, but barely.
We didn't start dating right away. But a friendship grew and turned into a relationship. And I think there are also some underlying elements for the both of us. Like a year outside of a marriage for me, when I was a year outside of the marriage with Chris, it still is not a lot of time, especially considering I was married for 5 years before. A year after that marriage, I met Chris. A year and a half later, he and I were married and having a baby. Like there's not been a lot of time for me to grow. There's definitely was not. Dave was in that marriage for, I don't even know how many years, maybe 20. I could be wrong.
It wasn't 20. It was like 12, 15, something like that.
16.
Yeah, about
But
that.
I think they were together for 20 years. There was no time to process any of it, right? And there are, like, when I make a list of what I want in a partner, I don't know that I'll find the right partner the next person I meet or the one after the one.
No
I
one
think
does.
it takes time, right? Because every relationship we have, we get to see what works and what doesn't. And we get to say, oh, okay, I got this that time from this guy. And then I got that over. And these are things like, this is something I don't want. This is what I do want. So you get to create what you want.
Yeah.
But I also don't know that I believe there's the one, right? Like, I think it's
Good.
really awesome that I have gotten to have the experiences that I have with the people that I have. I think that's a part of, I think what it's really doing is making you the one, is what it
Right.
is, because you're getting to see. But yeah, it is. Oh, go ahead.
I think that view of there is the one, I think, is so detrimental for so many people, because I think that it keeps people either stuck in toxic relationships because they're so convinced, but this is my person, because, you know, all these check mark reasons of why. And so they'll stay in spite of it not being healthy.
Yeah.
Or on the flip side, it prevents the more avoidant people from getting in relationships because they're so picky. So it's like, nope, that can't be it. That can't be it. You know, and so
when it's all fun, they just need to do it. Like,
yeah, I really think it holds people back.
yeah.
Do you enjoy dating?
The idea of dating right now feels awful. Like, now, before, I would say, outside of both of my other marriages, I was like, oh, I'm ready right away, right? Because there was a part of me, I think, that craved attention of men more than I do now. I just don't care anymore. Like, I don't know what happened to me, but
You got with Dave, and he's feeling that need for you, I think.
I don't need it anymore. I think, again, there were so many emotional voids that I was filling, and I didn't even know. I had no idea. So I was excited to date after both of my last marriages. Now that I am not, there's not a part of me that I'm like, man, like, I have a lot more responsibility now. I have a business I'm building. My kids are at an age where I'm like, they're so close to leaving the house, 2 of them, and it makes me really sad. A relationship with Dave, which was great, it took a lot of energy, and I'm really looking forward to having the energy for myself and for my kids and my business right now. And I feel like I'm like, oh, okay, there's no one man that's going to save and fix everything like you thought, or no one perfect guy.
No shit.
The next thing is going to be another couple years of figuring it out. And then do I start over again? You know? So it's like, I'm not in a rush this time. I think I'm not excited about it, and I'm not in a rush. But there will come a point when I am. I feel like I have stuff to do on my own right now, you know?
Right. It's such a sign of healing that you aren't the things that you were using
Not a sign
to
of
fill the
healing.
void prior. That's not what you're looking for. That's not what you're searching out right now. It sounds like you're finding a lot of contentment in you and in your goals and your passions. And I mean,
That's what you're supposed to say. That's what you're supposed to say now. You know, you're not supposed to admit, oh yeah, I'm really struggling without male attention and I need it and crave it and want it. But that's not, you know, something that is going to make me appealing to male attention. So yeah, I'm just focused on me right now while probably obsessively trying to get back with Dave or whatever. I don't know. Again, like, I don't think she should be talking about any of this publicly at all. But if I was to be Dr. Liz in a private conversation, I would say, like, you know, like, it's okay to sort of deal with these issues and feelings. Thank you. You know, and it's okay to, like, be obsessed with a man. Let's figure out why, as opposed to just lying to yourself by saying, like, I don't need anyone right now. It's like, I don't know. It just seems so pointless to just, it's like saying, I love myself when you utterly do not. It's not going to magically change how you actually feel until you deal with the issues.
Yeah.
How about you? Are you dating? Have you been dating? Tell me.
Yeah, how about you?
This is where our producer Melissa gets happy. I am supposed to be dating. Supposed to be in this sense. We had a dating coach on a few episodes ago.
That is
he's
amazing.
like, I was like, I didn't realize this was going to turn into me working with dating coach, but I'm on apps. Not that I use them. It's such a joke. Like I don't, and then obviously Instagram, there's plenty of DMs that go on. So like the opportunities are all there, but I'm probably fall in the category of like the one. And so I don't believe in the one, but like the idea of being super picky, right? So just being really selective, like it takes a lot to pique my interest. And because I am so career driven and I'm so obsessed with my kid, to your point, like in order to pull me away from either one of those things, like it has to be.
And because you have poor Richard, I shouldn't say poor, maybe he's not innocent in this whole thing, but you have Richard maintaining that attention and that like feeling of, oh, you're wanted, I'm sure, because she left the marriage, and Richard, is just remaining this like bestie now. So yeah, there's no real urgency. Why would you? Sounds like a pretty sweet situation to me.
It has to be worth it, and it hasn't been found as of yet. So
I think that's really good. You and I are a little bit different I love that you're so picky, right? I am because of my upbringing and because of some of the things that I went through, I can love anybody. I'm not kidding you. I can actually find the good in and love anybody, and I can really love them, right?
Why was there a cut there? Sorry, I'm eating my Gatorade protein bar. Gatorade. They must have cut something out she didn't want, because that was the first cut I've seen. Let's go back.
Whether it's toxic, anybody, and I can really love them, right?
Weird. That's a weird thing to say. I can love anybody. I don't think Dave Hollis is the hottest guy that's ever walked the earth, but Chris is a conventionally attractive muscle man. Derek is a pretty attractive, conventionally attractive man. Give me a break. You can love anybody? Okay, then go do it. Because the people you've chosen have been pretty like good millionaires, like give me a break.
Whether it's toxic, abusive, anything.
Toxic, abusive, anything, I can love anything? Come on, what is this?
The good in and love anybody, and I can really love them, right? Whether it's toxic, abusive, anything. My work, I also don't like to hurt feelings. So I think my work next time is in having a conversation over an app and having the courage to not feel like I have to go to coffee with them if I don't like them. Right?
Yeah. Practicing boundaries.
And then when we go to coffee with the right person, having the courage to like not go on a date with them, because I am somebody who likes to make people happy. I feel like I need to like show them respect and then, after a week or a month, having the courage to break up with somebody because
I relate to that. In the past, it's like you feel like some obligation, like I don't really care, but I'll look like a bad guy because I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just not interested, and it's unfair to be mean, so I'll just continue to see how it goes. Maybe I'll change my feelings. It's like, it's fine. You're not a bad person. So relatable, #relatable. Oh my God, just like the title said.
I mean, I am a person that's always had a hard time saying no.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be a bad girl, a mean girl, right?
Right. Yeah, you end up in a lot of situations that obviously
sounds like something Rachel Hollis would say.
Not wanting to be in. And to your point, like really, really convincing yourself that you want to be there and that you do, you're finding all the reasons to stay. And that's, that takes control of the mind in a lot of ways. So sounds like we are definitely on the opposite ends of the spectrum. So maybe we should become dating buddies and we can like really encourage healthier behaviors.
You can be like, no.
Maybe you guys should date each other because they both live in Arizona. They both have similar philosophical views. And Heidi can love anybody, so mix it up.
And you could be like, give him a try, Liz.
I mean, like, look at his heart. He's a good person. Like, he really loves you.
Yes. All right. Well, we have some partnering to do for sure. So Heidi, tell us a little bit just about the work that you do. And then I know you have a really cool program coming out in January, and tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. So I actually, because I can love anybody, it's a real thing. I also have like we all have gifts. One of mine is being able to see in people what they can't see in themselves. I know what people are capable of. I think you know what they're capable. We all know what they're capable of, but it doesn't matter if they can't see it in themselves. So I'm a trainer, but I always say I serve people what they think they want. And then when they come in, I give them what they really need. They think they want diet and exercise, so that's how I bring them in. But what we serve them is the tools to actually love who they are, and be.
They think they're getting diet and exercise, but really they're getting emotional manipulation. Cool.
Comfortable with who they are and figure out why they thought they wanted to lose the weight in the first place, or all the things, and then we heal from the inside out. And we do the physical work, but that's a byproduct. The weight loss or the shape change is a byproduct of them actually learning the real tools to transformation and self-love. So I have challenges that I run. I have an app, again, because some people think that they want workouts. I'll give you the workouts because that's where I'm trained. But
Sure.
I have this really cool 5-day, it's called the 5-day Better Body Boot Camp. We give workouts every day. But what we give more than anything is every single day. I say, give me 5 days for 5 minutes a day. These are people who have tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed. We've all been there, right? And when we try and fail,
It's all about self-love. That's why I force these women to put their sports bras on to compare their bodies and before and after shots, specifically to see, look at this self-love right here. Do you see the self-love right above her bra line or right below? Yeah, that line right there, that shows that she has done her inner healing. Like, stop lying. It's a weight loss boot camp. You say some motivational dumbass quotes from probably Tony Robbins, who stole it from someone else, that says like, you can do it, don't stop doing it. And that's what you call transformation. Great. But why is this? People want the workouts. They think they want the workouts, but they want shut up, just stop it. Just be honest. It's a workout plan. It'll help you lose weight. We're obviously highlighting the weight loss. It's stupid.
Over and over and over, we end up hating ourselves. We hate ourselves. We don't believe we can do anything. We're like beliefless. And so my thing is, give me 5 days. Give me 5 minutes a day for 5 days. Let me teach you a nutrition tip and a 5-minute workout, super easy. And then I'm going to give you a life lesson that will.
No offense to this person, but all this person did looks like they pulled up their pants. Like, what am I actually looking at? Like, no offense to this person, but like, you pulled your shorts up.
A perspective shift that will help you look at everything differently and help the diet and exercise that you choose, help it stick. Because otherwise everything's temporary. And this 5-day Better Body Boot Camp, we have one starting January 2nd. It's completely free. And it is the most magical thing. I poured my heart and soul into it, and it helps people see that
one of the days was like 5 minutes of straight lunges. You poured your heart and soul into it. You barely showed up for this. I'll use it their way.
They are worthy and they are capable, and it helps them begin to believe in themselves again. And then the sky's the limit. I'm not kidding. Some of the transformations that we've had that started with that boot camp are insane.
That's so cool. It's really the snowball effect, right? Like, you get the buy-in on those the base level of like, I can do hard things, and then I can do harder things. And then it really grows from there. It's a really great approach. Where can people find the program? Where can they find more about you in general? Social media, website?
On Kia's World. Only and exclusively. All right, I'm assuming she just wraps it up there, please. One more shout out to Chris at the end. Okay, thoughts? There was a lot to go through there. But basically, it seems like Dave, this is my takeaway from this. It seems like Heidi decided, in order for this relationship to work, we need to be physically together. Now, we already know, she didn't say it, but they own a house together, or at least he bought the house for her, so it seems, in Arizona. because it looked like maybe he was going to be spending more time there with his kids. I don't think Rachel is a huge fan of the kids leaving to go to Arizona every week to visit dad. I don't think that's fair for anybody involved. They have lives, they have sports, they have football, whatever. That's not fair to the kids. So I think that Heidi said, you need to move here or we're breaking up. I can't do it anymore. And he said, well, we're going to break up because I can't do that. And I think she's upset about that. Like, he didn't sacrifice the ultimate sacrifice for me. That's what I think personally, because the way she was describing how much she loves it, the back and forth and this and that, I'm not buying that. And I think what happened was she said, I want to be chosen. She said that I want to be number one. And he was like, I can't do that. Rightfully so. And not that he wouldn't choose her if he didn't have kids. I think he would already be the live-in boyfriend by now, way by now. But you have a 5-year-old. That's not like you have a kid about to go to high school and you're sort of like, okay, 2 more years and I'm out. You got a whole lifetime to grow up, or for that child to grow up with a co-parent, with her and her boyfriend and all those logistics. And, she's traveling for tours and stuff. Like, it comes a time where it is logistics. People say, like, what's the most important thing in a relationship? And people are like, oh, like passion, like, okay, whatever, sure. It's logistics and geography. Those are the 2 most important things in a relationship that's going to work long term, in my opinion. I'm not a relationship expert, I'm not a podcast host of a relationship podcast. So, don't take my word for it. But, those are the things that really, especially with children and kids and schedules, that's the stuff that you're going to be dealing with day in and day out. Any love is not going to outlast that. Very, 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 very few. And good luck. I haven't seen one couple successfully do it. So, Heidi and Dave, if you figure it out, I stand corrected. But yeah, I think that's why you're not together currently.